Did you know that we're more than just a podcast? We actually have a LinkedIn group. We have a YouTube channel with a bunch of YouTube shorts. We're also on TikTok. I think Jocelyn requested that. And then for some reason, Wendy wants us on MySpace, but I don't know if we're there yet. However, check us out on those other channels. And if you're wondering why we haven't covered a particular topic yet, well, ask us. Go to aka.ms/low code topic request. That's one word, aka.ms/low code topic request. Thanks, everybody. Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of the Low Code Approach. I'm Sean Feeney, a Senior Product Marketing Manager on the Power Platform team, and I'm joined by...
This is I, Ken Aguilar. Yes, I have returned from the realm of bacon with Wendy, who is not here. However, we do have with us today...
General Jocelyn Panchal, Senior Product Manager of Power Platform Security. And I am joined by the lovely Madam Julie Koesmarno, Group Program Manager of Dataverse. Julie, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Maybe I should correct that. It's actually Group Product Manager.
Oh my God, we should do an entire episode about what are we?
What's the difference between program and product?
Sean, put that on the calendar.
Yeah.
Julie and I have lived through the many circles of Dataverse reorgs and rebranding. And we had Nirav on an episode a couple weeks back to talk about what is back, right? Like, we are back now. What does back mean? But Julie has stayed true to leading Dataverse. And now everything is the age and era of AI. So Julie, can you tell us, what do you feel about the era and age of AI? And how does Dataverse play a crucial role in that?
Yeah, a very interesting question there, Jocelyn. I think it's a good way to open up this conversation. I still recall maybe about, this is not going to be one of those like, hey, back in my day. But seriously though, before the whole ChatGPT sort of took up so much attention from the world, right? GPT, interestingly, was always there. And I sort of kind of kept an eye on it. And at that time, I was thinking like, because my background is SQL and database. And I was just thinking, hey, wouldn't it be nice if somebody could actually just ask a question and then somehow a SQL statement will be curated for that. So, getting to your question about the age of AI or the agent era, some folks may interpret it differently. Personally, for me, the way I see it is that what we do especially from the business or business applications world or business processes are being changed dramatically. So a lot of things are automated. A lot of things are taking into consideration like how LLM take place in these kind of business processes to just get the most value out of the data. So that's how I interpret it in the perspective of, I suppose, someone who's actually more of a data professional here. I see that the age of AI or the agent era here really helps to bring data to be more meaningful, to be more valuable to either our daily life or our businesses. So, yeah.
So as organizations are moving towards this agentic way of operating, right? Like this is how we're now implementing generative AI into our business processes. Are you noticing any patterns or can help customers identify patterns that may be put in place as they adopt agents? Like how are they moving towards an agentic world, if you will?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question there, John. So before I get into these two patterns, let me remind folks, just because Dataverse has been around for quite some time and it has helped the local sort of business application sort of world. The one thing that makes it super interesting is that Dataverse actually stores common and operational data for these business applications or processes. So the two things, so from the perspective of when you think about low code or Dataverse, is that the two patterns is that one is you have these human being assisted with Copilot or with agents, and the other one is that you have team of agents working together. The human assisted one, let's kind of walk through it a little bit about like how would that look like from the non-business way. So essentially, you ask a question, maybe you ask Copilot or you ask Bing, you can ask questions and then you get some answers. So that's a little bit more on the kind of like, hey, I'm doing a simple search and I get assisted with, Copilot to discover new things. From the data perspective or from low code perspective is essentially you have this enormous amount of valuable data that is actually stored in Dataverse, be it business data or operational data that you've probably already been storing since you're using, quite a lot of business applications out there, like, using Power Apps or model-driven apps. So imagine if you want to build new things, say, for example, build new tables. The story of the human assisted with Copilot or agents is that as you're creating these new tables or this new data model, you get assisted or suggested with what data model kind of makes sense. So you could tap in things like, especially in Plan Designer, you could tap things like, hey, I want to build a system to for maybe hotel registrations, right? So you can just tap in, or maybe you can also take some screenshots of what you want to create, right? And under the hood, actually, it has a number of agents that Plan Designer utilizes to create not only the data model, which is, essentially get translated to Dataverse, but also the apps, agents, or automation that actually kind of needed for this kind of hotel registration story. So that's a really cool thing about the human assisted with Copilot. In this case, it's a maker. But there's also other stories or other scenario, which is like from the end user perspective, where you have, like I mentioned before, amazing, valuable data stored in Dataverse. Then you can go to like your app, like especially when it's the one that is created by model-driven app, and you can filter really easily using natural language and also visualize that to get yet additional insights. So we are seeing more and more exciting space in terms of data discovery and exploration, where it's assisted with agents or with Copilot. So that's the first pattern. So I'm going to pause here. Let me know if you want to chime in before I move on to the second pattern.
No, I do have a follow-up, but yeah, let's hop right into the second pattern, please.
So the second pattern is where the team of agents and humans working together. So you could have these autonomous agents that run against your data. And autonomous agents, essentially, you have these events or triggers that have been predefined. So for example, hey, when an email arrives, process that email. Maybe that email has invoice attached. So the autonomous agent can pick up this data from the invoice and translate it and store it as your business data and transfer it into the data in Dataverse. So that's an example of one autonomous agent that has been created. And you could also create another agent where it would actually help you explore that data. So now you have two agents working together. And the human's oversight on this is that you get to see, hey, what's that autonomous agent been working on? So for example, with that invoice, if there is while autonomous agent could be really good in terms of like processing this data, in case there's some error, there's that human in the loop side of it or human oversight side of it, where human can help the process to kind of go on by looking at, hey, looks like there's some issue with dates as an example. I'm going to go fix it, save it, and then the business process flows. So teams, we can see like this pattern, team of agents and human working together to really transform and streamline a lot of business processes. And we're seeing more and more customers adopting that. And maybe that's actually one thing that I say that until I think I discussed with a few customers on this, until I spelled out that, hey, Dataverse is where you store your business data and operational data, you're actually, what you're doing, the pattern that you actually just said, or the scenario that you said, it's actually a team of agents and humans working together on top of Dataverse. And they just went, actually, that makes sense. So now, after we talk about this pattern, they seem to be kind of thinking more and more like, oh, what else can we do? So very excited in that team of agents and human working together pattern.
That's awesome, and thank you, 'cause that's a ton of information, and I really appreciate that. How you're probably seeing a blend of both patterns in organizations, and that's maybe one of the ways to achieve success. Back in the day, when low code was kind of like the next paradigm shift in business process modernization for organizations, you had this distinction between kind of like personal productivity apps, right? That you would have. Then you'd have like enterprise wide apps.
Yeah.
If you think about when we move into agents and the data that you're working with, Dataverse, does that fit into solutions you build that are enterprise wide, personal productivity, a blend of both? How would you say Dataverse helps in either one of those scenarios, especially if you're seeing a blend of both patterns in organizations?
From my take, mostly because of the customers that I've talked to, there are a lot of enterprise customers that we talk to. small, medium business customers as well. Technically speaking, yes, you can apply the same the same patterns as well to your personal life because we're from low code approach perspective. um, we welcome anybody. And this is one of the reasons why I love working in the low code space where the barrier of entry is lowered significantly, where people can learn and use technology a lot more. So you can build systems or solutions, whether it's for enterprise scale business or for your personal work as well. I know that I think if you go to Power Platform Conference, what is it called? The competition that people do. I
Oh, the
actually make games and these kind of things. What was it again?
on.
I'm not sure if it was the hackathon. I think it's like, yeah, I cannot remember now. I have to look that up. But a few folks, especially MVPs, are actually building amazing, very, very creative kind of like either apps or agents to help for fun things, not just for, work or for enterprise stuff. I think a couple of years ago when I watched it, it was about someone actually made a game using Canvas app. And I thought that was like, wow, I never thought about using enterprise kind of like, systems to build such fun things. So this is one of the reasons why I mentioned like I don't think it's only for businesses, but I think it could be fun for personal users as well.
I'm a little curious, Julie. Like, I'm listening to you speak and I'm playing back in my head everything that you said, but processing here, what I'm trying to get from for myself and for the listeners is the how and the why for Dataverse. There's a lot of complexity, or can be a lot of complexity in agents. How and why is Dataverse the right choice? How is it beneficial for them to use Dataverse? How does AI help with Dataverse? Maybe that's 4 or 5 questions we just asked you.
Yeah, so let's unpack this a little bit. So, Dataverse has been the trusted data platform to store business data for enterprises for the longest while. So, we think about scalability from enterprise perspective in terms of like, hey, we want to make sure that it's always up and running, that security is there, the role-based access is there. And you can also essentially secure your data, ensure that it's actually your data that you store, your business essentially, it's actually in a trusted sort of like storage space. So that's kind of like the underlying data first, if you look at it from the perspective of storing and securing your data. And now let's kind of add that layer of how do we make it so that it's more intelligent? So when you build apps, we make it easier for you to not only build apps using AI or using Copilot, but also the creation of that data model becomes easier as well. So it streamlines your from kind of like thinking about like prototyping and just getting that rapid iteration with your potential end users, right? Or your testers. So that's one aspect of it. And from the other spectrum, it's about, I think I mentioned a little bit earlier with regards to data discovery. As you are asking questions, part of the data discovery or exploration, as you're asking questions using agents, which you can build in Copilot Studio, you can add Dataverse as knowledge to your agent and you can ask more meaningful questions, business questions in a natural language way. So as you ask this type of questions, you can feel more assured or safe that this data is also secured in the same way as, if you're using the more kind of like the traditional app sort of way. If user has access to that data, then they can see it. But if user don't have access to that data, then they won't be able to see it. And likewise, when you ask questions from the agent perspective, we still honor that security. So the fundamental trusted data platform carries across from thinking from the app way in the traditional approach all the way to agents consumptions as well. And one of the things that we are investing more and more is how do we make what I consider as like programmability much easier on top of Dataverse. So you have this kind of amazing data that is stored in Dataverse. You can build, so functions is already in public preview today. You can build functions really easily on top of that. And these functions, so for example, maybe it's to calculate maybe discounts or something along those lines, or something maybe that is a bit more complex, you can integrate that with agents as well. So these functions can become a tool, right, for your agent to kind of use, because we've heard from a lot of our customers and our community as well that even though agent is there, they're still interested in building like programmability, like a function where the outcome is still deterministic and that can be called by agent. So yeah, so there are a lot of areas in Dataverse from the data layer to programmability layer, from building assisted by Copilot all the way to like having data consumed by agents. So I would probably summarize it as in terms of like complexity wise, there's that knowledge aspect of it where you can just simply do retrieval. You can ask agents to do certain tasks on top of your data, and it could be simplified using functions as a tool. And then lastly is the autonomous aspect of it where Dataverse can, help to store your data and, streamline your business processes. Hopefully that helps. I don't like 4 to 5 questions and I'll try to tackle them.
No, it really does. But I definitely have a follow up here. So many organizations already have well established master data practices today.
Yes, yes.
So now we're coming in and we're introducing Dataverse. How does Dataverse integrate with master data in those, I have SQL repositories, Oracle, SAP, however that may be, and how can I now leverage Dataverse with this new enhanced AI capabilities with my existing master data?
Great questions there. We do definitely acknowledge that I guess the data estate from enterprise point of view could be quite vast, right? You could connect to this. So from data first perspective, you could, create a virtual entity as an example to some of the sources so that, you can combine this kind of data for your applications, for your processes. But one thing that I wanted to elevate further is like, especially if we're looking at from the agent era, interestingly, from agent perspective, actually, when you built one note that I haven't called that here, when you built an agent in Copilot Studio, you were actually already using Dataverse under the hood, by the way.
Yes.
So it may not be as obvious, but you are essentially using quite a lot of the platform from Dataverse perspective, from storage to a lot of other things too. So let me talk about from the agent point of view. If you do already have master data management stored somewhere else and you want to combine your data, with Dataverse to kind of like, as part of your business solution, especially if you're building agents, this makes it super easy or much easier because you can bring the knowledge from these other sources as well as Dataverse together so that the agent can rationalize on top of these different types of knowledge sources. So that's also yet another example where we are very much aware that you may have data in other or systems outside of just the Dataverse ecosystem.
So now that I know that I'm using Dataverse, whether I am intentionally trying to or not, I now understand all of the richness that I'm getting from there. Now, as a next step, as somebody who's trying to get started building a brand new agent, what do you recommend I start doing? There's all of these things, there's knowledge, there's actions. What should I do next?
I'm a little bit biased because I just love data. It's my bread and butter. So I think if you want to, especially since, a lot of the things that we've discussed today is related to agents and Dataverse, I think one of the easiest way for you to get started is to open up Copilot Studio and start adding agents. So I think the link is ak.ms try Copilot Studio, and you can start trying either, using file upload. Actually, file upload is powered by Dataverse technology too. So in case you want to, try something simple, upload a Word document or PDF files and, upload it and start asking questions and see how you like it. Yeah, that's kind of like one quick, easy way of kind of getting started with agents and Dataverse together, whether using file upload or using Dataverse tables. Yeah.
Okay, so I got to mention it. Build. What are people looking out for at build? If I'm interested in agents and I'm interested in data and like, even if I don't even connect the two, like my role doesn't even make me connect the two, why should I care and what should I care about?
Marketing of you, Sean. Are you in marketing?
I mean, no, I'm not saying I'm hypothetically, I care. I mean, my job is to care about this, but as someone who's going to build and being like, hey man, I'm a developer. Why would I even care about this? Right? Like I'm in pro code tools. This is not my concern for building agents using tools like MCS or Microsoft Copilot Studio. It kind of is still actually. There's a lot of, positivity and a lot of richness in tools like that. Julie, why would I care and what should I look out for?
Great question. There's got a bit of fun to unpack there too. If you're coming to build, hey, what should I watch out for? I think you will hear quite a lot about agents still. There's going to be a lot of announcements from pro code perspective as well as, from the low code perspective or, for example, from Copilot Studio too. So one thing that if you coming as a pro growth and looking into, walking into build, hey, what should I care about? I guess the low code approach or what we're up to from Dataverse or from Copilot Studio perspective is that, yes, you could absolutely build your own agent or agentic solution on your own. That's very much possible. Something to consider is your time to value or time to market. We're helping you to kind of get that one step closer or easier for you to ship essentially, because we take care of, like, I think I mentioned some examples about like using Dataverse as knowledge. Could you do this on your own? Absolutely. You could use Azure AI as an example. We partner with Azure AI team too, by the way. So you could use Azure AI and build your own RAG, build your own, special indexing or vectorization on top of your data, and you can customize a lot there too using the kind of pro code way. That's absolutely wonderful. But something to consider is that you'll also have to maintain this on kind of like on a longer term and making sure that the system's always up and running. So we make that process easier for you, where simply just, I give an example about just doing a file upload, right? When you do file upload, we take care of that indexing, factorization, and so on. And we'll make sure that it's always available for you. All you got to do is just like file upload and then just start asking questions. There are no additional configurations that you have to think of. Also, actually, in addition to that, if you are using Dataverse tables as your knowledge source or knowledge sources for your agent, you could simply point and click like which tables you want. But if your business requires that special sort of like configuration to translate certain jargons, right? Because we know that every business, especially the alphabet soup, you can define that as glossary. So even though it's low code, but we do offer customization that kind of makes sense for your business so that your solutions kind of understand the data a little bit more. One thing that I want to kind of emphasize, especially coming from data perspective, more and more we realize that not all pieces of data or information are equal. So we make that under the hood, we make that easier process for you so you don't have to figure out, or like, hey, which piece of data should we kind of prioritize when answering certain questions and so on, and building it by yourself or on your own. So we do that for you. So you're going to see a lot more of that. And if I may hint, probably you're going to hear quite a bit about Model Context Protocol or MCP, because that's also one of the hottest things that's happening in the industry right now. So be on the lookout for that too. So if last year you hear about RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, this year you're going to hear more about MCP, which is Model Context Protocol.
You know what? One of my favorite things about Dataverse episodes is that, like between Narav and Oleg and now you, Julie, is that there's so much to unpack, right? These are usually our longest episodes, but they have amazing listener numbers associated to them. And I think that, as we get into new technologies and new features that are being released for Dataverse, because Dataverse is ginormous, like we always have more and more content to talk about. I would like to dig into what do people need to do, like to get maybe not started, because I think we're past that stage. Even like you said, like when you're building agents with Microsoft Copilot Studio, you're already using Dataverse, right? So then, like, what are the next steps? How can I take that further if I'm like, oh, all right, I'm using Dataverse, I can incorporate knowledge, I can do knowledge tuning, I can, I've got all these security aspects already baked into what I'm using here. How do I champion this to other users? How do I grow this usage amongst some of my peers in my organization? Be like, yo, Dataverse is it. Like, you guys should be using this. What do I have to do?
Very good question. Let me see. So essentially the question is about championing. So beyond getting started, how do you champion and kind of get this going, essentially the momentum going, right?
Yes, please.
So from my point of view, I think there are two things. One being hands-on, like the more people that can get hands-on on this, I think the more, I guess, excitement or virality that is kind of built to that, your hands-on. You get very excited the first time you try building your own agents. And I think the more people that can, use that, I think that's amazing. The other one, which I think I mentioned a little bit about, the team of agents and human working together, I would probably say that is going to grow more and more. So if you're in the space where, hey, I've already built my own agent and I'm good to go, it can answer me some questions, it can do like small things for me. Now, I think the next step is to kind of like build your creativity or apply your creativity in terms of building a team of agents and human working together. A really great example that actually I was reading recently online was there's this company that decided to, have a kind of like a team huddle to discuss like, hey, out of all these steps or processes that we do on weekly or daily basis, how do we start transforming that to automate this or to make it easier so that we don't have to do the manual work like checking and verifying and things like or the actual work itself. So they've decided like, well, it looks like for, invoice processing, I could, just automate this. So then they decide like, thinking about it from what is the problem that they want to solve all the way to kind of building team of agents and human working together. So I think I would highly recommend to think about building the team of agents human working together. And I've listened to a couple of amazing customers recently how they built that in such short time period. And I was like, wow, I would never have thought that you could actually do that. Integrating it, it's not just like, hey, I'm building a brand new things and it sits on its own, but it's like integrating it into their existing business process as well or business applications. I think that to me was kind of like the wow, rather than building just in silo, but building it as part of their existing business processes. Yeah.
So here's a question for you, and this is more so just something for us to have fun with. What is your favorite feature in Dataverse? Like when you said that you really love data, what is your favorite feature inside of Dataverse? And maybe how could you use it in an agent to solve a business problem?
That's a tough one. It's like picking which one is your favorite child. I don't know if I can legally do that here on the podcast. Let me think.
She's gonna be thinking and she's gonna be humble, but I want to point out like Homegirl made all of the ABC to Dataverse features, all of those incredible integrations. But anyways, I'll let you pick.
I knew it would be a hard one for Julie. That's your ask
What's your
question.
pick, Ken?
You're not putting it back on me. Right? Because if you ask me, I'm going to be like, oh, I love the security of data first because that's where my fashions lie.
So to answer the question on like which one is my favorite, now this is a bit of recency bias. Unfortunately, this is about recency bias is because I got really excited, kind of like the first time you built your Hello World program in your life. This is equivalent to that, which was recently we're actually integrating Dataverse as MCP server, and there are a number of tools that are available. So I got to see the magic of MCP server or MCP as the protocol itself that helps interface with MCP client that has very powerful orchestration under the hood as well. So now it's sort of about democratizing these data in different ways, not just, locked into, for example, Microsoft ecosystem, but also other MCP clients outside of Microsoft ecosystem could also tap into this data. And there are lots of creative companies out there as well in terms of how they think about how their orchestrator should work. So now it's about the possibilities of unlocking this data in different ways, in creative ways as well. So to give you an example for this one, and this is the recency bias aspect of it, which was, I was thinking like, hey, we should, like I said, we shouldn't really lock data into just, Microsoft ecosystem. So I was just trying out, hey, how would Claude work with Dataverse data if, when we wrap it as MCP server? The kinds of conversations that I can have with that business data that is stored in Dataverse, and then the kind of questions, the kind of exploration that I could do. To me, it was mind blowing. It was as exciting as when I first wrote Hello World program and thought that I could chat with my program. So this is kind of equivalent to that. So again, recency bias, that's the one thing that I could think of right now. But if I may say another one, this one is not so much about democratizing, but this is a little bit more internal within the Dataverse ecosystem itself or Dataverse space itself, which is if you have created a formula column in the past, right? And you start, let's do something simple like, price time, discounts times quantity or something along those lines. Now, of course, that is very deterministic. What if you were to if you want to kind of do like a sentiment analysis based on descriptions, and that's a bit more kind of like what LLM is best for. And then what if you want to kind of say, hey, from this text, I want certain kind of like sensitive words or PII data redacted. That's also another kind of like an example of what LLM is good for. So one of the newer feature that we are actually shipping is called prompt columns. So now you can have formula column, that is where you can like power effects logic, but now you can also have prompt column where you can define prompts where, you can leverage the power of LLM as your column. So that's the other one too that I thought was cool to check out.
Julie, thank you for reminding me that I was in third grade when I wrote my first Hello World program. And now I feel really old, but I'm also very happy and proud of how far we have come over those several years. Sean, any closing comments?
I would like to see the punch card that you wrote the Hello World program in, Ken. That would be
It
fantastic.
wasn't a punch card, Sean.
It's
Dang.
not that it
Okay.
feels old. It's just that it is. It's a
Walks in with a stack of cards. He's like, this one says hello world. Hey, Julie, thank you so much for all that information. We'll have Ken on to talk about COBOL at some point too, because we want to know all about
It
that.
was a 5 1/4 is what it was. Okay. You know that. Jeez, Sean.
We're definitely going to have you back on because there's so much goodness that's coming out with Build, and that's been announced, and there's always new information and features for Dataverse. So we'd love to have you back on, and I think that we'll include a whole bunch of links to what customers should be following. Is there anything you'd like to call out before we wrap?
Yes. One thing that I really, really want to say is I'm super grateful of the Power Platform community, the Dataverse community. Without you, I think it would make my day-to-day pretty boring, to be honest. I mean, it gets exciting too, but I can see and feel that excitement every single time we go to conferences like Power Platform conference as an example, like or Build as well, where I get to see a community and how far you've taken what we build to something super creative that actually solves problems. To me, it's very, very inspirational. And that's, I think, one thing that makes me feel like it's worth going to work every single day. So I really want to thank the community for always championing for us, but also giving a very great feedback, constructive feedbacks on how we can do better, not just from the community perspective, but also for businesses out there. And I also want to thank our customers as well for, having that trust in their business, with Dataverse, right? So looking forward to like yet another amazing journey of agents with all of you and of course with your data.
That is awesome. And you heard it here first, people, like plus 1,000 of what Julie said. But Julie gets to work with Jocelyn every day and also said that her day-to-day is boring. So take that as you will. But that was fantastic. Thank you again, Julie. I really appreciate you coming on the show, and we can't wait to have you back.
Thank you. See you.